And we are recording the call in 5, 4, 3. We're already recording, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're very, very naughty. We're very
It says
naughty.
right at the top.
Let everyone know they're being recorded. More about privacy info. I'll just accept all terms. Okay.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. This is the Unthink Me podcast, I suppose, for now, as we work on our various issues, including the one resolution we made is that we should probably address our audience. I'm Adam, and you're James.
Unless there's a substitute teacher. Yes, that is true.
Okay, continue.
Anyway, so the topic came about. Adam is a skilled programmer in a few languages, and feels that he may or may not get a job based on his interviewing skill more than his skill could be utilized as an employee. So we're going to dive in a little bit about interviewing from both sides of the desk, concepts on either side, how that might relate to spiral dynamics in the corporate world.
As that is kind of a topic that we're always like looking at, the integral model and just applying that to stuff. It's not the only thing we do, but it's a part of the way we deconstruct and reconstruct things. Your audio is a slight bit crispy, so we'll keep our little minds attuned to that, and I will let you know as that develops. It was like fresh fallen leaves beneath my boot bottoms. For those of you just checking in, this is sort of like our first show where we kind of say anything about what's going on. So this is what we do. We're hanging out. We're having fun. We're going to deconstruct some stuff. And hopefully as we go around kind of milling advice about life from one another and talking about ideas, this will be things that will apply to people watching the show. I assume that most people in the world would be interested in improving their ability to get a better position of employment in some way, shape, or form. So we're kind of approaching it in both a personal and a collective way, saying, these are good tips, but maybe they're not so good. Criticizing, deconstructing. I think that's kind of what we're up to. We got some talk about pregame, like how do you get into the right office, and we got some talk about what you do once you get there, and what not to do, what attitudes to have. So I think that's pretty good.
To add a little credence to the conversation, my position
set a marker right here. That was the introduction, and an interruption at the end of the introduction, following the perfect segue. Take one and go, and we're live now. Continue what you were saying, exactly where you left off. Thanks.
To add a little bit, I think we need to leave a little bit of dead air so you can cut. Silence in 5.
I ain't cutting shit, Jack.
3, 1. To add a little bit of credence to our conversation today, I am from the corporate world. Adam is a lot more ethereal than I am.
I've done corporate a tiny bit, yeah.
Very into spiral dynamics. I have a tertiary knowledge about such things.
Which, by the way, if anyone's confused, I'm doing like altitudes now, but it's spiral dynamics with like 3 different color names. Same thing. When we say spiral dynamics, you can just think altitudes, and we'll use them kind of interchangeably. Hopefully a little explanation. But he knows spiral dynamics, and I know spiral dynamics, so it's a common language. Continue.
So my role for my job is I travel around the country and I train people on how to be better leaders. So interviewing is something that I've both done. Obviously, I have a job, but also something I train a lot of people on how to interview. And knowing the backside, knowing the larger chair on that side of the desk, it becomes a lot easier to coach someone who's coming in, being interviewed. We can talk about that. So, Adam, tell me about the last, just any of your last interviews, and any pitfalls you had or hiccups you may have had, whether you got the job or not. Let's start with some example.
I could name a few examples that might be kind of fun, and we might want to exclude some of them. Like, are we including jobs that I didn't really want that bad, or maybe that's a thing to get into. So, okay, the job that I have now, the interview is sort of irrelevant because I just sort of called someone.
Interviews.
No, I know, and this is my point. Is the reason I have a job is because the interview was irrelevant.
Oh, okay.
You see what I mean?
Yeah,
so let's go before that. I applied for an IT college position, entry level IT, no problem. They did want a certification that I didn't have. That's kind of standard, but no problem getting that. And they say like, well, in your first 3 months, we can support you through that. It's like,
Okay, cool.
perfect. So I was appropriate, and they called me up. It was early. I'm in my little shanty town, and
What is early?
oh, Michigan early. It was 7 or something. I just mean it wasn't 3 p.m. It wasn't 11 a.m.
Were you awake?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd prepared. I got to move around, all that. Kind of thought about it. Wrote some notes.
Did you know this call was coming?
Yes, it was scheduled call.
Okay.
But I did not know that there would be like freaking 5 people, and it would be like a Teams meeting with like 5 people in it.
Oh, honey, that's the best way to interview.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I was.
But for the person hiring,
I liked that, but it was a lot to keep track of, and it was really hard to get a gauge on everybody, and I had to be very conscious of like who everyone was and how that would actually apply to the. But anyways, entry level like IT position. I did a little bit of preparation, but for some reason my preparation like really underserved me in the interview, and I kind of bombed like 2 questions that I really had no business bombing. Like if you asked me them at any given point in time, I would have answered them correctly, but just due to the nature of the situation I was in, I answered them at a very like I gave pretty bad answers. And at the end of the call, they seemed to like me okay, but I felt like I was probably not going to get a call back.
Okay.
At the end of the call, they're like, do you have any questions? I asked a bunch of questions. One of them was like, so I'm like always interested in like self-betterment, and every time I interview, I try to ask like, was there anything that kind of stands out? Like, if I don't happen to get this job, what exactly do you think is the main thing that kind of disqualified me? Like just based on your right now, like spur of the moment.
That's really good. That's next level interviewees.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Put them on the spot,
because a lot of times it is just like target practice. I don't really expect it, and really if they did offer me the job, I'd be like, well, do I really want to live over there? Do I really want to be in that environment or whatever? And in this case I did, so I was really interested in it, but I did bomb those questions, and they said at the end, it was just like, it was kind of just those that I use Linux operating systems, so I'm not as familiar with Windows. And I think that's kind of, I feel like there's a little bit of putting the cart before the horse there, but I didn't manage. I feel like I could talk my way through that, but I didn't, and I should have, because I didn't mention, it's like, well, I deal with Windows all the time, and the thing is, I don't have to really know Windows. I know like computer science fundamentals, so I know how to Google a question and get the answer to do it on Windows like very, very quickly, whatever version of Windows you have. That's very different than being intimately familiar with the latest version of Windows and the ecosystem's front end.
Right.
Very different, but I can definitely solve your like blue screen of death issue, and I can definitely like, make sure your graphics card is connected, and like I can get you signed back into your Outlook. These are things, this is what you actually do. I would be terrific at that, and I'm very patient and friendly, and I think that I would have been like perfect for that job, but I completely bombed the interview.
So tell me a little bit more about you. You keep saying bad answers and bombed questions. Just give me some sort of example. It doesn't have to be exact. Like,
so here's like the
disconnect. What do you mean?
Here's the one that kind of stood out to me is he said like, okay, you encounter the classic like blue screen of death. This is your basic IT interview question. And I was really focused on the customer support side of it because I've done a lot of interviews. So I was really like kind of role playing that. And I wasn't thinking as critically about the problem, which, to be honest, I haven't dealt with that problem in many years because I don't use Windows because it has those problems.
All right, fella, I'm not hiring you. You're not selling yourself to me.
I'm telling you this as your friend. I wouldn't say this in a fucking
Windows thing. You keep that to yourself.
See, I'm not saying that in the interview, but this is why it drives me up the wall. Like,
I know you didn't say that in the interview.
Yeah. So what you do is like you have to query certain things. It's like, is the screen still there? Has it reset? Are you able to do anything? Like, what does it say on the screen?
Should have said, and you did.
Yeah. Is there an error code on the screen? And then if you're able to reboot and get back in safe mode or do some other kind of like limited boot up, you should be able to check an error log or an event log to see what exactly the crash was. So that's the actual answer. That's like your 101 basic like answer to the freaking question. Wherein I probably gave things an incorrect name because I know the fundamental principle of it. I actually don't know the particular implementation that's popular right now at this time because I'm always so out of the loop. Like, and that's a real problem, but I'm very upfront about that. It's like, I didn't just graduate from a program that teaches Microsoft. You know, that's not who I am.
Of the 5 interviewers or so, you said around 5. What were their positions? How many?
I don't recall exactly, but there was essentially the guy who.
How many of these people were there as like HR or recruiting, and how many of these people were there as a representative of their current IT staff?
I would say 2 and 2, yeah. And then I don't recall, like the final one was maybe someone who is not entirely relevant to me personally.
Probably a recruiter or something.
Yeah, something I didn't really. But they did name all their stuff. But again, it was like I had to remember like their name and their appearance and whatever impressions I got and their role and how that applied to me. It was very complicated, and I didn't really know how to deal with that because they're also asking me technical questions, and I'm not specifically targeting IT, so it's not like I'm an expert on this. I was just trying to get a job, like an entry level job, in something that was nearly appropriate.
So there's a couple of ways that the interviewee, you having a background in tech, this is entry level position, which at this company for you,
it's a college too, just so that's out
okay. There. So for you, the skill set required is there. Easily or too easy. It's just it's a position that your skill set locks into easily. And so your interface with these people is where you felt awkward or less than somehow, because you keep saying bombing these questions. I would say if you were just talking to the recruiters and hiring management, maybe team leads that aren't in the trenches of IT all the time, taking the human approach, the personal interaction about how you would handle a call from someone who's working on something and then it stops. And it was, grading all of these things, and now I can't find them anywhere. There's a split screen. They're going to eat.
See, and that's the difficulty is they were all there. So I don't know who, like, am I catering this for the social skills people or the tech people? Because those are like polar opposites.
So if there's multiple people in an interview, and I do stress that there be at least 2 there, the hiring manager, and then I
think it was like hiring manager, HR, my immediate manager, and then the tech like supervisor. So I think it was just like you described.
Yeah, the fact that you show up and smile and speak somewhat eloquently, HR's eating that up.
Yeah, and I did that just fine.
The fact that you use Linux, the actual like hardcore heavy gunner in the trenches of IT is going to eat that up. It's these other 2, the hiring manager in
they don't know what
IT,
that is.
And
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, some sort of team.
What is that?
Whoever the other person is. So that in that instance, it's tough because I'm not from the IT world, so I can't use vernacular that's going to line up.
Sure.
So if that were the case, if I was bombarded with more than 2 people, I would answer the question like, okay, so tell us how you would deal with the blue screen of death on Windows. Like, okay, everybody, I know there's a lot of different people here, a lot of groups here, so I'm gonna, if it's okay, I'd like to answer this 2 different ways.
That's cool. Like modularize it. Yeah, that's pretty smart. I didn't think to do that.
Just purchase the time for yourself. Some interviews, when we start our interviews at my particular company, we always tell them this can be as little as 20 minutes, or I have a hard stop at whenever. Usually I block about an hour. That way, if it ends earlier, I can, put it into a scorecard and figure out where this person lands. If it goes the whole time, great. Next interview or next whatever reason I had a hard stop, and set that aside and come back later. But usually an interview is allotted more time than it's going to take.
Yeah.
And so use that time. It's yours.
Yeah.
They've dedicated that time to an interview. If it is 30 minutes, maybe make them slightly shorter answers, but you can buy your own time by understanding that you're a person. They're also people. It's sort of like, the purple meme of,
I've worked for reptilionoids, but I get what you're saying.
yeah, all of these people are gods in their own department, and so I don't want to piss off the river god because then we won't have rain. Addressed all of them.
And what do you think about this? So a lot of people will give you a lot of this stuff is kind of like sagely advice, and a lot of it's kind of beginner advice. We're kind of throwing it all in together. A lot of people tell you, don't go out. Try not to be talking the whole time. Try to get them to talk the whole time. Try to be in control of that. And you want them explaining their operation. You don't want to be necessarily qualifying yourself or explaining yourself. That's what they say a lot. What do you think about that?
I coach opposite.
Cool. So just talk, answer the questions, give them the information they want. But you would agree to get the info you want from them.
100%. Yeah. If the interviewer,
but maybe equal, would you say equal?
No, I'd say at best, like best case scenario, 70-30, 70%.
70-30
interviewee.
And why do you differ from the 101 from the Interviewing for Dummies book?
Sure. If the interviewer is talking the whole time, you don't want to work there. They're selling you that job. They're so desperate to get some. Maybe they're just bad at interviewing. Just like
it lines up with my experience for sure.
But if they're talking the whole time, they're trying to sell you on it. They need somebody, and most of that talking is going to be, here's what your normal day is going to look like, and here's a list of our benefits. And did you see the foosball table and beanbag chairs out there when you came in? We like to keep it fun. They're selling you
the teddy bear.
Yeah. Like right away, to me, that would be a red flag. Maybe an ignorable red flag. Like I said, maybe they haven't been trained on how to interview. But if they are talking more than you are, how much do you think you're going to be allowed creativity in the job?
I don't know how relevant this is, but I wanted to insert this real quick.
Here we go.
You were once employed at Finnegan's Family Restaurant when that existed in Missoula, Montana, yes?
Yeah, restaurant.
Is that fair and legal to say?
Suspended over the river. I worked there consistently, part-time and full-time, but nonstop for 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I interviewed there.
Who was your interviewer? Do you remember? It was Carl.
Finnegan's Family Restaurant.
God,
yeah.
Carl.
He put cocaine in my hot chocolate, and then he told me that.
That's not true.
It's not true. That's not actually true. Don't spread it. But it was a joke. But
he's bad at interviewing.
So he took me up to like the secret room that I'd never been in before, like the secret party banquet room where they murder babies and stuff.
Exactly what we
also not true. We should pre-qualify.
We had a banquet maybe once a month. Toastmasters would meet there. Lions clubs would meet there. Exactly. Every other day of the week. That's like the employee break room.
So he takes me up there, and Mofo, he's like, he kind of hosts in the front. He's like he kind of presents, hi, like, how you doing? He presents himself okay, but at the moment we got up there in private, he was shaking uncontrollably and stuttering.
He's more nervous than you are.
He was so nervous, and it made me really nervous. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? Is he scared of me? Is he mad at me? Did he not want to be here? Like, and what I remember, because this was like freaking 2 decades ago when I would want to work at Finnegan's with my friends, and because I stayed up there all night drinking cups of coffee anyway. He said, "You're too smart." And I was like, what the heck? What do you mean? Like, you can't be too smart to wait tables.
Here, kid. This is beneath you.
Yeah. Because I'm smart, I will be better at waiting tables and bussing and dishwashing. But I get it now. He thinks I'm little college boy, and I'm gonna get bored really quick, and I'm gonna be like, this job is bullshit, and I'll be like, this is abusive, and I'm gonna peace out because I have better things to do. What these guys don't know is at least then and kind of now, I don't have better things to do. I don't. So don't tell me I'm overqualified to work at Starbucks. I'm there because I want to fucking work at Starbucks, even if it's just for a year. It's annoying.
In this instance, knowing him for so long, he wasn't saying you were too smart, as in like your job is going to bore you and things, which is why some people say you're overqualified.
Wait, I'm sorry. At the time, I thought he was saying I was a smartass. That's how like defensive I
That's
was back
what
then.
he was saying. That is what he was saying.
Okay. So my younger self was more apt at like reading.
Yeah, I don't
It was
think
much more straightforward than I'm making it.
I wasn't there, but
You guys were all smartasses. What do you mean? I was as genial as the next guy. I don't think he knew that I was capable of professionalism to this extent required for a restaurant. Because when I came there, I was fucking drunk.
Right. I don't think your answers were smartass or anything like that. I think that he was used to.
He knew me.
That he had met you before. He had probably had at least one altercation of like, if you guys are.
I believe your wife threw me out because of things that I actually did at one point. So I don't know if he was privy to that information.
I mean, we were kicked out before either of us were.
Hey, you were kicked out, and you would go there drunk. I mean, it's totally unfair. I'm just like, why do I get thrown under the bus for the shit everyone else is doing? You guys were all smart too.
This instance, I think, was slightly. He didn't know you as well as he knew us.
Yeah.
And so when we give him the, like, you know, in this situation, if you were called into work, how long do you think it would take to get here? Well, I'd tell you to fuck yourself. And he'd be like, oh, okay, I know you.
You know, there you go again. It's coming back to connecting with people on an individual level. Like, I clearly wouldn't have even thought to do that with Carl at the time. Because he was like an old guy.
That may be what you were kind of doing, or what he was reading into the situation. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds about this very individual situation, but the interviewer knew you from a.
But it is funny to talk about Finnegan's. Like, don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah. I'll tell you 10 years worth of stories on it. But in this instance, the interviewer was nervous because he's not good at interviewing, and then the person he is interviewing, he has only had. Patronizing relationship with. You had come in and paid money you rented that booth for the cost of a cup of coffee. And so the groups that we would go in with were after I got a job there. I had only been there less than on one hand, and it was like to eat
terrible tippers too.
Oh, I never have been. To eat and leave, where in your college days, when you would have been there longer, he became aggravated. He was a daytime person. And so whenever he had to spill over into nighttime things, he would have seen a student with probably 4 or 5 other rowdy students getting grand total $8 worth of coffee and renting that booth for 10 hours. That would piss him off. So, back to the interviewing.
Just to segue into that, but I wanted to insert something really quick.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, this being our first audience engaging recording, I'm getting up at 6, and we're just doing this in our homes early in the morning. And the two things that I do for entertainment and to keep myself sane are stay up late on a Saturday and get up early on a Sunday. Just so everyone knows, we're fighting against some stuff. We're swimming upstream. So thanks for appreciating what we're doing. All right, back to the interview. Don't do that at an Don't do that at an interview. Don't interrupt what's going on and
maybe
sentimentalize or meta. Go meta. Break
Depends
the fourth
on
wall.
what you're interviewing for and when that would happen.
I want a meta interview.
So we can role play here in a sec.
Okay. Meta role play.
That is a perfect example of a poor interviewer.
Yes. Okay. Gotcha.
So great. That's like on a scale of 1 to 10, that's probably like a 2 or 3 because he didn't punch you in the face and he showed up. So there's an instant automatic 2. When you're bombarded with a group of people, one of those people might be a 2, one of those people might be a 9, and who knows where the other ones fall.
And I guess my strat was I was just thinking like, who's my immediate manager? It's probably that curly haired guy there, and the way he's talking to me, and it seemed that way from his title. So I was trying to appeal directly to him and just having everybody else witness that. That was kind of my strategy, I would say.
Judging by how many people were there, he has no say in who gets hired.
That's true too.
Like they listen to it, they're like pandering and letting him be in there.
God, you're so right.
But that person probably is not the one to make the final decision.
So he's like, "Oh, that guy was really good," and they're like, "Yeah, but he was talking about all this nerdy bullshit."
Yeah, I've never heard of Linux before. Is that going to be a problem? Yeah, and he's like, "No, that's like awesome. We can. He knows like the fundamentals and all of this."
Is this how I do it?
Honey, how do? Yeah. So again, that many people was a red flag. It is a school, so you're probably always going to get a lot of people in a school interview.
Yeah, that would be cool.
In a typical interview, I'd expect at least one interviewer and hopefully one more.
That would
want two, because then they can talk about your shortcomings and windfalls and work together to sort of blend out a common thought process between them. Maybe one person is one person is super I don't believe in left brain, right brain, but it's an easily describable thing. One person's left, one person's right. They can talk after the interview, and there you have it. So when you go into an interview, so first, okay, let's get back to Genesis. When you are searching for a job, I was trying really quickly to think of the Sonic Hedgehog thing. Don't do it, because I'll think of it later. Are you on Indeed, Monster, the newspaper, all word of mouth? Because those also will change. Ooh,
this is a fun thing to get into. Are we getting into this?
Well, let's start at the beginning. How did you get to this interview?
I have multiple sources giving me advice on this topic at the moment, and so I got a specific set of instructions for a specific style of doing this, which is pretty particular to relocating, if that is indeed a thing, which I do a lot in my life. So.
Well, that's getting it. There's always been relocating and working on site. And now there's this third remote world that has always existed, but it's becoming more prevalent. So that water is getting muddied as we speak. Yeah, so, go ahead.
Yes. Guy, who will probably appear on the show at some point, but let's just call him Guy Pierce for the moment.
Let's call him by his real name.
Do not ever don't create a login for anyone. Don't sign. Okay. Don't do an application. Don't do a application process through Indeed or whatever. What the approach that he does that is not the approach I've ever done is you Google search for keywords for your job. It'll pull up entries on all kinds of stuff. You send a very basic email with a resume, and you make sure that it's stuff that you absolutely do want. And then if they're like, we'll log into this, get on the portal, get on the tenant, get on the work system, don't do anything. Just that's bad. If they give you a phone number, then you put effort into it. Until that point, you don't put any effort into anything. When you can call their hiring manager or whoever actually gives you the job.
Okay.
Because he's just very no nonsense, and he's very good at getting jobs and finding work.
I was worried about this until once someone responds to you, then go after it. Yeah, that makes sense.
I've wasted so much time on that. Like especially in small towns
logins and stuff.
So I spent this was like a whole chapter of my life in which I was not really blogging about it or anything, but I was applying for every single job that could possibly be a good job for me in the area that I live, which is really bad opportunities. Nothing was working. Nobody was calling back. There was no interest. It was just hitting a dead wall. And then I realized this is a small town. This is how you do things. You walk into every store, you talk to people. And then I started getting interviews. That's how I did it. In a small town, in a medium-sized town, it was 100% about knowing people already and asking who they knew and get in touch with this person. That was how I got a job. That was how I got interviews. So I am definitely on board applying that to a more realistic situation, like a tech job in a city or something like that. I don't want to mess around with their stupid online system where the HR people don't even look at it. If I'm not talking to somebody whose job it is to relate me to a hiring process in person, in real life, then I'm pretty much just wasting my time because I could be doing that.
I would say that the amount of good prospects where you would have to submit some sort of query on their website, the majority, I would agree that the majority of those is just it's a mill.
These are low-level corporate position kind of.
Yeah, they want to have 100 people on deck at all times, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
The company I work for, unfortunately, does do a step of that, but they do.
Well, it's a big company. I mean, right?
Well, there's 1,000 employees nationwide.
So medium.
So it's on the smaller side, but they do call.
But like the reach is really big, right? I mean, it's like a main.
Yeah, it's nationwide. And so if you're looking to move, I actually interviewed with this company from 2 states away, and of course, when you're hired, they're not going to pay your moving fees or anything like that. But I interviewed for a job that was 2 states away, and got it. But so in some of these, again, I'd say the minority, you don't have to create a login or anything, but you do either have to connect through Indeed or the website. And that basically just gives the recruiter your number. 100% of those numbers get called back at our company. So that's, I'd say, the exception to the rule. Most of them, Indeed actually has parameters that if you are a recruiter and you want to use Indeed, you can have keywords and whatever the opposite of keywords, hot words. If this is in their resume, I don't even want to see it.
Yep. Yeah.
If this is in their resume, I want it bumped to the top. And that's AI. It's unfortunate, but that AI was created based on a system of white men hiring other white men. And so I think it was John Oliver talked about this very particular Indeed AI. And the person whose resume made it to the end game every single time, the first name was Tyler. They graduated college and they played lacrosse. If you have those 3 things, you are 100% guaranteed that someone's going to see your resume. The farther you deviate from those 3 things, the likelihood of a human looking at your resume diminishes. Yeah, we have this AI. It's non-biased because it's AI. Well, that AI was created based on a system of hiring of.
It's going to emulate existing patterns.
So exactly. So.
And then you get into the ethics of, well, should we jack it up to eliminate the biases that exist? Like that's a whole other thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not within my purview. So if you were to use Indeed, I would hybrid, and this isn't something I've done, but having talked for this last 20 minutes about it, I would hybrid. If you find something that you like on Indeed, I would reach directly out to the company and not through Indeed.
Yeah, exactly. I've found Indeed and LinkedIn kind of useless, at least for what I'm doing at the level that I'm at, which is entry-level software developing in tech. It's those are both basically, it's going to be like headhunters that are looking for something that's inappropriate. It's going to be like
they're looking for an employee mill. It's going to be a revolving thing. If you're on Indeed, or if you're on, on both. If you're on one of those, there's some section in your business that just can't keep employees, or more in our case, where we expand to the point where we can never be fully staffed because every position created.
And it looks like a lot of
that comes in for a good person. There's positions being created. There is come and go. LinkedIn, I think I'd say, is if I found something on Indeed for Adam Lowen Industries, and pay this, pays this, benefits this, locations this, job description. Then at the bottom it says log into Adam Lowen Industries. Okay, you go to Adam Lowen Industries and it wants you to create a login. I would go to LinkedIn, look up Adam Lowen Industries and find out
the baseball player, not me.
Who they're right. Of course. The recruiter or hiring manager or HR is there, or your local manager of the local branch or facility, and reach out to them through LinkedIn and say, hey, I noticed your ad. I wanted to connect a little bit. And that would be a good hybrid. So the way your friend is doing it. Okay, so just to kind of keep this progressing and so we're not stuck in Genesis.
And
in the beginning,
to be fair, he's in like office management, just so you know, that's the
Sure.
field he's doing, and acting, professional acting.
like mid-level management. Office
Yeah,
management,
well,
like at a local level or regional level, national level.
No.
Continental level?
You just kind of medium-sized business, like
Okay.
clerical front end phone calls, like sales, just kind of being the
Administrative.
front end. Yeah, right.
Sure.
Administrative, mercenary kind of. And you know, he's got like an associate's degree and just kind of like has pretty quickly like gotten to like some good jobs to where he can kind of get one anywhere. Just that's the field.
I've seen enough of the
as I
back of
understand.
house to know that you can cut through all this tape.
Yeah.
And likelihood that you're just
Very savvy.
Well, we're
Very
going to
people-savvy.
interview 15 people regardless, and they liked the first one, and then the other 14 are just to fill that quota of we need to get a good sample group before we choose one.
And he totally destroyed my resume. It was beautiful. I love what we've done with it.
If pretty much everybody that interviews, even at the entry level positions, will give a resume.
Yeah.
In order to maintain my level of authority as an interviewer, who is only going to talk 30% of the time, I look at their resume and I cross off everything that's irrelevant for the position I'm hiring or the position I'm looking at. So let's say I'm hiring a in-field technician who's going to do repairs. Back like warehouse employee at Office Max, cross it off. Server at Finnegan's, cross it off.
Yeah.
Oil lube technician at Meineke. Okay, I don't make any sort of notation on the paper that this is what I'm looking for. It's just all that's left. And I make sure I don't put it in their face, but I make sure that's visible when they walk in.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I don't like hold it up and say, you're probably not going to get this, but it is next to my notebook.
Well, and so, okay, just to kind of cut to the chase, like, so I'm a person who's basically switched careers every 2 to 4 years my entire adult life. And I've very rarely gotten anywhere in any of them just because I keep switching.
Okay.
And so for any position that I apply for, almost everything I've ever done in my entire employment history is irrelevant to the position. Maybe. And you would only end up with 1 or 2 things on that list that wouldn't be crossed out. So I tend to just cater a resume. I just put those on there. And sometimes I'll have a little other section because I've literally worked in like 17 industries.
Right.
And none of them are impressive.
There is crossover. Like, okay, so let's say the Meineke oil change tech. Most of that stuff's going to be relevant to what I need. Like cash register work, I don't need that. But then back of house, if it said something along the lines of meeting deadlines or quotas, okay, everything else is redacted except that. Or if it said something along the lines of automated equipment repair or something, it's not just like the whole thing is X'd out.
Yeah,
I will circle things and draw lines over to the side and prompt myself with the question I want to ask.
Well, and this is where the conventional wisdom kind of fails me. Personally, I think as an IT professional, it's a really good feather in my cap that I was a career music teacher, because that implies things about my personality that are atypical of IT people. That I'm personable, outgoing, I can persuade people, yep. I can develop people. That it suggests a leadership ability to a limited extent, a small team leadership ability. And even things like I've completed 2 project films. Like that sounds stupid, but it's like you can see something through from start to finish and have it done. And it's a film production that's not easy to do. I'm not saying I'm going to show them my movie.
If you give me your resume and it had you're going for IT, and I'm scrolling and I see music teacher on there, I might cross off a couple of things, but I would put a note in the sidebar to specifically ask you, Adam Lowen, tell me about a time, tell me a story. So I see that you were a music teacher. That's awesome. I bet that was fun until it wasn't. Tell me about a time where a student was getting really frustrated
Yeah.
because they physically
Yeah,
didn't have the muscle memory yet to do X. How did you
Yeah.
pick a time that you were able to motivate them out of that? And then,
So that would be great if they really engaged with it like that. And this is the problem when people tell me to imagine myself on the other side of the desk. I would like to see a resume that says I meditate and do yoga. I
Mhm.
have a blog about philosophy. I played in rock bands. I, as a hiring manager, would be interested in that. Nobody else that's all like, well, okay, so you've had a lot of hobbies and no experience in the professional world. That's how they read that, you know.
most will.
I
And
just
that's
I
where
kind
on
of have
your
a
side
different
of the table,
perspective than a lot of people would.
Dominic, if you're not allowed to talk for 70%, around 50 to 70% of the time, that's going to be a restricting job for you. Like they have a
Maybe it's just that individual
SOP.
though. You know, maybe you won't really be dealing with that person a lot and they're just like a kind of bloated windbag, you know?
Could be, but that shit rolls downhill.
Yeah, it might be kind of
Eventually your department,
a cue
those
to the
4
environment.
people at the school, that bloated windbag wouldn't be there if the team lead that you'd be answering to today had power equal to or greater than that bloated windbag.
Well, there you
So
go.
they still have to answer to that person, which means your SOP, your modus operandi for the day, still revolves around what that person wants. Their interview style, good interviewers, bad interviewers. Finnegan's went bankrupt. Well, they went bankrupt because of what's it called? Embezzlement.
Well, it was a rapidly changing community economy, and a lot of businesses fail. Yeah, I mean, so what are you attributing that to?
Why Finnegan's failed?
Sure.
They were embezzled out of business by the accountant. But
Okay.
it was on a downward.
Well, there's a spin.
It was. That's actually.
All y'all in Missoula now, you know. Is that a secret or anything?
It can't be at this point. There was 2 locations, one in Kalispell, one in Missoula. The owner lived and spent all of his time. I saw him once in 10 years come down to Missoula to check the store out. The accountant embezzled so much that they had to close one of the 2 stores, and the owner lives in Kalispell, so you can imagine which one they closed.
Okay,
And it was
like look what happens when you assume.
But it was on a steady downward decline because the Carls of the world are the ones doing the interview. It wasn't.
It was a good crew, though.
At times.
At times, it was a good crew. Yes, there were ups and downs for sure.
So we can pick apart the individual situation of the college with the 4 interviewers, but let's get a higher view of an interviewer that either asks a poignant question and then shuts up and listens, to someone who will ask a question, wants a yes, no, on to the next question.
I could pose go ahead.
Yeah, get after it.
I could pose a mystery with another job interview example.
Sure.
So I was told, I was like, okay, what would be relevant to me? Like I have a degree in economics, so maybe like get a clerk position at a bank. So I looked at all the banks around, and I ended up, I knew a friend that had worked at the bank, so I asked her how it was. She said, it's great. They're nice. You know, they're cool. I was like, okay. And she said, you really like it. So, okay. I was getting kind of excited about it. Okay. And I put in my application. I went on their website. I read all about, their company and their values. I read what the position is. I did research on what it means, because they have like very specific names for like bank tellers these days and what exactly their role is. It's like 50% what you would think of like as the person behind the counter of a bank does, and about 50% like outward sales and networking and making connections. Yeah.
Behind the scenes selling.
So very not my personality, but I was going through like a personal transformation where I was experimenting, like maybe this is my personality. Okay. And it is a business professional environment. So when I actually got the interview, I came in like a black suit with like a blue collared shirt and a tie and everything. Okay. Which is, I have like 3 of them. Like it's uncommon for me. I get them at freaking like garage sales, but I looked all right.
Solid move.
Was coiffed. And
rather be
went in there,
dressed.
Chatted with the receptionist, went in there. It was the branch manager and the HR. And then I think someone was there from corporate HR remotely, just like spying on us.
Sure.
I feel like we developed rapport.
How to train better.
Yeah.
or how
I
to
feel-
interview better.
Yeah, I feel like I came in there guns blazing. I was all caffeined up. I was very smiley and friendly. We talked about personal life stuff. We got into the questions. We improvisationally role played a call to the company, and I feel like I just knocked that out of the park because I know improv and stuff, and I'm like,
Right.
it's like I can role play, so I'm not afraid of making a phone call, playing a character. That is easier for me than being myself. That is fine with me. I've just never really done anything. The closest thing is just like customer service and like teaching, where you kind of role play, but you're kind of yourself. But yeah, I can be a salesman or representative. I can do those voices. It's like that's second nature.
It's a facade you can put on.
And so everything looked like it was going swimmingly, and they were talking as though like they were explaining things to me as though they weren't dismissing me. They were like explaining how it was going to go and how it was going to be.
Mhm.
And then like a week passed and I was like, okay, this is weird. I like left a message on the guy's machine, on the guy's answering machine. Nobody got back to me. I did it again. And then they sent me like the template rejection letter where my name has been filled in. We are deciding to move forward with another prospect who better matches the qualifications for the position. And I'm like, dude, we know each other on a first name basis. I'm a member of your community. I came in and spent like at least 2 hours of my time on this, at least. And you're not going to like give me any sort of indication of what differed from how you presented things, because it really seemed like I got the job in every outward form, which is fine. If you don't end up choosing me, you have another conversation, somebody has some input or something, or that you look at my qualifications again, you question something. Sure. But let me know. That's just common courtesy.
Right.
You have a reputation. I'm going to go on freaking Google reviews now and give them a terrible, like, that's bad at their jobs, right? Like they should have done a better job. That was just bad manners. It's unprofessional, I think.
Well,
not that I really care.
It is. It's a bank. Yeah. And so since the beginning of time, bank is the bad guy. I haven't made payments on my farm in friggin' 10 years, but the movie I'm in is going to portray the bank as the bad guy coming to take my farm. Well, I'm kind of the bad guy.
Oh,
anyway, does your friend still work there?
No, she is actually kind of sort of my boss at my current job.
Okay. What happened that she departed that job?
She was poached. So she was with the bank, and then she got poached for the company that I used to work at, a cannabis company. And then I got poached to that company, so we worked together. And then she left that company for a different cannabis company. And then I left that company, and then blah, 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 did a bunch of stuff. And then I worked for her in the cannabis company, a different one. That's the story. But it's all small town, friend of a friend stuff. None of this stuff was gotten legitimately. In every case, the interview was like a joke or an afterthought. In the first case, the first cannabis company, I insisted on the interview as a matter of like, I don't think I want a job where they're not going to interview me. And that was sort of how it played out in the ultimate. A good thought. That was sort of why I left the company, because of the like negligent, I don't want to slander anything, but just that idea that you don't get in, that you're going to get hired without an interview. It's like
sight unseen. So that is the cardinal opposite of what the bank did. Yeah. Yeah. They're doing the interview for not show, but for to tick that box. The interview was done.
That's what I'm worried about.
In the interview, they don't want to have conflict. They don't want to seem negative at any point, because that's not their job at that point to be.
So you think that it was handed down to them that they have to do like 4 interviews this quarter so
something along those lines.
But they don't want to actually do the work of hiring anyone, so they just have an open position at all times and they interview for it as much as they can.
Well, the people that you were talking directly to in the room probably don't have a lot of say in how it ends. And so your friend who said, yeah, this is a great place to work, you should come work here, loved it so much that all it took was a phone call and maybe $1 more an hour to go somewhere else. She was poached or recruited by a different company.
Oh, that is a joke term. Yeah, it just means they jumped.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, poached is something we use in the industry also. We scout and poach all the time.
And it happens a lot in cannabis because, as things legalize, the companies grow really quickly and there's constant need for skilled anything.
What a volatile
Most of the experts are former criminals by
business
not
structure.
in a negative way, but just by the fact.
Yeah. And I don't say volatile as
And they
like
did it
that,
in an
but it's just like,
unprofessional context.
it's